Imagine living fearlessly. You're focused on what you love and you're letting go of the rest. Welcome to the Dissolving Fear podcast, where fear doesn't run the show, you do. Fear doesn't run this show. I'm your host, Miss Alyssa Shirk, and I like to share stories from my life as a mom, teacher, and life coach, and I love to have inspiring guest interviews. Today, we are having a guest interview with Kate King, and she will be joining us shortly. So, follow for more. If you want to feel strong, resourceful, and true to yourself, tune in, follow this podcast. You'll love the results. Loving life is what we're all about here at the podcast and at missalyssa.com. So, Kate King, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back.
Thanks. It's good to be with you again. I guess each book we have to reconnect.
That's right. You have a new book coming out, and this episode is titled How to Mend or Move On from Toxic Relationships, because that is what we're going to be talking about. You are a LPC licensed professional counselor and author, and you help people live their most radiant lives, break free of trauma and dysfunctional relationships. And it's an honor to have you. You're an intelligent thought leader in the field of therapy, trauma, and relationships. So tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. So I live in the Denver area. I have a private practice here for almost 20 years now, where I see people one-on-one and in groups and for workshops and retreats. And I write books. I kind of wear a lot of different hats as my career has meandered and shifted. And my current work is in alignment with my new book, which is called Mend or Move On. Because so often when people come to me for therapy and for coaching, they might be coming for maybe a mood disorder or a big life transition, but ultimately we always end up talking about the relationships in their lives, the ones that feel supportive and nourishing, and also the ones that feel like they're draining them and they feel stuck in and they don't know how to get out of. And so I feel like the relational undercurrent that's been present in my clients, it mirrors my own experiences too, being a product of a family that has estrangement in it for multi generations, lots of trauma. So this book is really kind of the culmination of my personal work, my clinical work, my case studies, a lot of the new research. I published through Johns Hopkins University Press, so this book has a little bit more of a academic angle, and it really accesses some cool studies that I don't know if readers would have found otherwise. So I'm just really excited about it because I feel like when we rework our relationships from the inside out, it contributes to our own life satisfaction, our own radiant life. And for those of you who read my last book or who listened to our last conversation about the Radiant Life Project, there is so much overlap between our personal inner work and the relationships that we choose to have in our lives and how we sort of plug into the collective from whatever level those two things are at.
And when it comes to mending a relationship or deciding to move on, we get to decide what to do. And I'm sure you have clients who don't even realize they have that freedom sometimes.
Totally. That's why I titled it Mend or Move On, because there's a lot of books out there for how to repair relationships. There's a lot of books out there for like what to happen, what afterwards, after you've been divorced or after you've walked away from your family. But to my knowledge, there are no other books about this sort of tipping point of should I stay or should I go? And so I really wanted to zone in on that because that tipping point keeps people paralyzed for years and sometimes decades when they're stuck in these difficult relationships. And the should I stay or should I go question, it's paralyzing, right? So I felt like that was a really important piece to just zoom in on and look at from all these different facets.
Yes. So if you are listening, we are going to talk about how you get to decide how to handle relationships in your life. We're going to talk about those two options, mending or moving on. And I feel like we have so much to talk about because the timing is kind of perfect at the start of the year. A lot of people are thinking in the new year about making changes, like leaving a relationship, ending a situationship, ending a marriage, or even going no contact with family or friends, or repairing the relationship. So, Kate, as a therapist, do you ever feel like clients already know what they want to do when they come to you and they just want permission to try one more time to mend a relationship? or to move on? Like when they see you, have they already decided, or do they just need help doing it and they need some advice about how to do the mending or the moving on?
That's a good question. I think for some people, they know deep down that the relationship isn't working. They want out and they don't know how to get out. Maybe they're stuck in I have these 7 traps of toxic relationships. One of them is avoidance. And so they might be stuck in the avoidance trap where they're just avoiding the problem. They've been enduring it for a really long time, but something brought them into working with me because on some level, they're not okay with this and they know that it's not sustainable. And so they're hoping that the inner work will sort of help to nudge them. For other people, they are seemingly unaware that their relationship is unhealthy and they've been blaming themselves. Another one of the false traps is false ownerships. And so this is when people take all the responsibility for the problems in the relationship on themselves. And so they might come in saying, I'm the problem, it's all me, it's all my fault. If only I could figure out how to be different, this relationship would be better. But really, when it comes to relationships, it's a dance. It's never all everyone one person's fault, right? So if someone has that mentality, sometimes it takes them a while to realize like, oh, this is a problematic relationship. Do I want to mend it or do I want to leave it? Do I want to just be honest with myself about the fact that it's not working? So I would say, it's kind of a mixed bag. People have different levels of awareness, and that's how they show up, and that's where I meet them.
Yep, it's crazy. I'm a divorced single mom, and I still believe that mending is a wonderful option for a lot of people. If you have two willing participants and both people are committed, then I think you can overcome challenges together. Like teamwork makes the dream work, especially when it comes to parenting. But I've also seen like the dark side of partnerships where you have one person doing all the work. You don't have two people willing to work together. Why do you think most people have relationship issues? Arguments, or is it because they're disrespecting each other, trying to control each other, or because someone cheats?
I think it's all
Probably,
over the map. I mean,
yeah.
I think every relationship has its own cadence and its own sort of rhythm that it gets into. A lot of the time, the culprit is unhealed trauma, to be honest. When people are looking at the relationship through the filter of their unhealed wounds, that's where sometimes they'll bring really dysfunctional behaviors into the relationship and they'll lack awareness about it. So they won't understand that maybe they're operating from a codependency kind of pattern, or maybe they're, projecting a lot of blame or accusation and they're not taking accountability. Or if someone was sort of part of an intergenerational pattern, like if there's abusive dynamics in their family and they say, well, this is just how we are, right? That's unhealed trauma that is now affecting the next generation of how they connect with their partner, their children, even their friendships and their work environments. So I would say it really runs the gamut, but unhealed trauma is a big one. And so if we would all do our inner work, we would all have a lot more awareness about what some of our unique patterns are, what we're carrying forward from our childhood or from our ancestral line that maybe isn't the healthiest. And then if we would heal that, we would have sort of a better foundational baseline for relational connection. So if I were to give like one tip, it would be heal your trauma, do your work, and then your relationships will benefit.
Mm. Heal your trauma, do your own work. It's so funny because my next question was like, if you were going to give one piece of general advice, one tip, as a licensed professional counselor, what would it be? What would be your relationship advice?
Yeah,
What
I mean, I think that was it. Like, do your own work because ultimately you're bringing everything that's you into the relationship. Like, that's your 50% of the relationship. And if everything that's you involves a lot of baggage, a lot of unhealed wounds, a lot of disowned patterns, or aspects of yourself that are fragmented or wounded, that's the contribution that you're making in your partnership. Whereas if you're bringing forward awareness and accountability and curiosity and a sense of openness, that's what you're fueling into your relationship. And in so many relationships, it's not just the two of you, whether it's a parental partnership, your kids are watching, right? Maybe you have extended family members who are watching. If it's a work dynamic, you have colleagues that are watching. If it's a group of friends, there's a whole group of people who are watching and participating and you're modeling for. So it really ripples out beyond just the dyad of two people in a partnership. And then you start to impact those people as well with whatever you're bringing in. So if you can really do your own work and own your healing, then the modeling that you're doing for all these people and all this ripple effect coming off of you is coming from that healthier place.
Mhm. I'd say like don't be hard on yourself if you get triggered and you think you're healed, from your last marriage or from your childhood, and then you get triggered. Like, don't be hard on yourself if you have more healing to do. We are always discovering when we have more healing to do.
Totally. It's such a fallacy that there's like a healed destination point that we all kind of get to. I have not ever encountered that in all my work as a therapist with all my clinical practice. Like there's no there to get to. It's just about the process. And I see healing as layers, really. It's like sometimes you have to move through certain layers so you can get to deeper layers. And then certain layers are bigger and more profound, and others feel easy and they feel simple. And some layers are repetitive of the work that you've done in other relationships. And that can indicate that you have a really dominant or primary wound that's going to take several layers to heal because it's so integrated. And it might even be your blueprint for how you see relationships and how they work. Maybe that was what you were taught from your earliest caregivers. And so when you're reworking and potentially reparenting yourself and really looking at these patterns, it can take time. And so I always tell people to take your eye off of like some horizon where you've attained perfection and to really just be with yourself through the layers because there are also gifts as you move through the layers. You feel different levels of freedom or you feel empowered in ways that you weren't before. You might have awareness of things that weren't clear before. And so there's a lot of shadow and light. And that's what makes it a really fruitful journey because you're gaining things, you're losing things, but ultimately you're always growing.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Did you ever see that interview with Brene Brown talking about her husband? When she first met him, she said to her therapist, I don't think this is going to work. And the therapist is like, of course, it must be very hard to be in a relationship with somebody who knows you and still loves you and sees all of you. Did you ever hear that?
No, it sounds like it's in line with her vulnerability work, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be triggering. Like, I've been single for like a long time. I think if I had a beautiful, healthy like man show up in my life, I might have to get used to that. You know what I mean? So sometimes just dealing with our past trauma involves like actually accepting a healthy relationship and not sabotaging it or not just avoiding it and putting yourself out there.
It takes so much courage. It takes strength. It takes energy. Like it takes effort. You got to really want that, right? You have to activate that spark in you. And it's not something for every season of life. There are some seasons, like a book I love is called Wintering by Catherine May. Have you ever read that book? It's about the seasons of life where you don't activate and do and produce and connect. It's when you go inward and you sort of nurture yourself and you cocoon. So I think there are some seasons for going inward and taking care of yourself, and there are others for going outward and connecting and being brave. And it's okay to listen to what your inner compass is telling you about what you have the resources and the capacity for. Because I mean, for you being a mom and a teacher, like I don't know when you would even have time to date. So if that perfect man is out there, I feel like you'll find him when the time is right.
But I love what you said about how, we see healing as it's hard work, but it's empowering. It is. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we have to remember is like you become a stronger person. And so don't look at it like, oh, here I go again. I have to heal and face my fears. It's empowering.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's empowering and it avoids that stuckness feeling, which I think is ultimately so much more uncomfortable. That feeling of inertia or paralysis where you're not good, but you're also not moving. I think that's its own form of torture. So ultimately, like the growth and the healing path, it might feel like it requires activation and effort, but movement always feels good. Like nothing in nature is ever still and stagnant forever, and we shouldn't be either.
Hmm. When it comes to people who want to move on from a relationship, I would imagine it's easier to cut ties with family or friends versus somebody that you're cohabitating with, like a roommate or romantic partner. I've only had one breakup when I was cohabitating, and that was leaving my husband and taking the kids and going to a rental. Um, but do you help people brainstorm ways to actually logistically leave their partners? And what advice, if any, do you give clients? Because I think it's really hard to leave somebody that you're living with. And that could
Totally.
be a reason why people don't leave.
Totally, that can keep people stuck for a long time. And this is actually also very common with people leaving their family members as well. Because there can be financial ties. Oftentimes, there's a codependency or an enmeshment within families. So it does show up there too. And certainly with spousal relationships, when you have commingled finances and you have custody agreements, and like it's overwhelming to think of really separating that out. There might be shared friendships that you might even work together. Like there's just a lot of overlap. So I always think it's really important to have a plan and to not do this type of sever impulsively, which really people don't do. There's this trend right now on social media that likes to say that people are going no contact, like out of nowhere. I've never seen that to be the case ever. I mean, it's usually an incredibly well thought out plan and decision where they've tried for a long time to repair and to make it work. And they've reached this final place where they're like, I can't do it. And so oftentimes people will come to a therapist and they'll say, I know I need to leave this relationship, but I'm terrified and I am so commingled with this person. I don't know how to go about it. And so it's okay to ask for professional help to help create a little bit of structure and a plan and some goals and some resources. Because when you're disentangling from a dominant relationship or a primary relationship in your life, it's challenging. Like that person serves some needs inside of your life that you may have to go without, you may have to replace. And so I always encourage people to make sure that they have a lot of support, whether that looks like the support of a therapist or a support group. It could be the support of really close friends or family members. Just having healthy people in your life that you can lean on and who can remind you why you're getting free from this other person, because you can get confused in the process. It's common for people to be like, I'm leaving, I'm staying, I'm leaving, I'm staying. What am I thinking? Am I crazy? And so to have healthy people who they can say, yeah, yep,
Yeah.
I see. I'm reminding you why you're leaving. Like, this has been a problem for 15 years, and we've talked a lot about it. Remember these memories, remember these experiences. That can be really fortifying. And then for, situations like divorce, talking to a lawyer is really supportive, really empowering because you learn what your rights are. And sometimes people who have really dangerous family members who might be aggressive or might come after them legally, financially, having a lawyer tell you what your rights are familially is also really empowering and really supportive. I know I did that when I was breaking free from some of my toxic family members. I found a family lawyer to help support me and to really help me understand what my rights were and how I would be protected if that person came after me. So, legally looking for support, socially looking for support, mental health, psychologically looking for support, physically too, like making sure you're taking care of yourself. Because when you're in a relationship like this, it can take a real hit on your energy level. You might be feeling depleted all the time, or you might be feeling activated and angry and scared and frustrated all the time. And those levels of dysregulation can make it really hard to sleep well. They might make it hard for you to eat. They might make it hard for you to work out and take care of yourself. So I would say, like, spend a really good amount of time creating your plan and set some goals for yourself. Like there could be a 3 month or a 6 month or a 12-month plan. And then by the time you get to those milestones, you will feel more resourced. You'll have more capacity to do what you need to do.
Hmm. Yeah, because people can say things like, "Oh, if you consult a lawyer, it's going to get ugly." And then you go to the lawyer and the lawyer's like, there are laws in place, like your
Yeah.
state has laws about how to handle family or how to handle divorce. And so there's lots
And you're
of
protected. Those laws exist for your protection and your safety. And so I think a lot of people who are toxic people will try to scare you away from contacting a lawyer or talking to a therapist because they want to maintain control and secrecy. They don't want you to tell all of the dysfunction, right? They don't want people to know how they've been treating you. And so they might scare you away and maybe even threaten things. Like if you go, talk to a lawyer, if you take this legally, it's not going to go well for you. I've heard that one a lot where people are then like, what do you mean? You're going to attack me? So it's important to not trust people who don't have your highest good and your best interest in mind and go find people who do.
Yeah. And I think if you're just listening to this for fun and you're not actually trying to leave a relationship, wherever you're at, have your own bank account, And then if anyone ever wants to commingle all the funds, you can say, well, no, that's just my investment account,
Mhm.
Like, because when you are leaving, it's good to open your own bank account. And I like what you said about like if you work together, it's a good idea to get a new job
Mhm.
before you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of these relationships, they don't have the emotional safety for you to talk to them and say how unhappy you are and how this isn't working for you, right? And maybe you've tried that for years and years and it doesn't go anywhere, it only escalates. And so for some people, when it's time to leave the relationship, they can have a heartfelt conversation and they can say, look, this isn't working. With love, I send you in your own direction. But usually those are not the toxic ones. Like those are the amicable, healthy relationships that want what's best for each other. So sometimes in toxic relationships, people have to ghost. They have to just disappear. And I know I had to do that because I knew that if I actually said, I'm going to end this relationship, this isn't working for me, these family members would have just like overwhelmed me with their aggression and violence. And they still did, even after I ghosted away. But I mean, I've never ghosted before on anything ever, except for with these people. So you have to know who you're dealing with. Also, be really honest with yourself about what they're capable of, how they react when things don't go their way, and then put into place forms of protection for yourself so that you feel safe after you make your decision and you don't collapse back into the relationship out of fear.
That's why lawyers are good because you can literally say, like, talk to my lawyer. You can go on talkingparents.com and you can only communicate online. And you can just say, like, talk to my lawyer because it's easy for people to get into your head or try to have like side negotiations or whatever when
Mhm.
really like if you're leaving, this is your chance to get what you want and to have a peaceful life. I do agree with you that our friends can help us move on. When I was getting my divorce, my daughter was a baby and I would go watch The Bachelor with my girlfriends and I would tell them like my struggles with my marriage. And I was like, is he being mean or am I just being too sensitive or am I just postpartum? And then my friends would literally tell me stories I told them. They were like, remember when you told us about this? And they would like convince me that it was unhealthy with my own stories. And so I think having friends can help if your relationship is kind of brainwashing you a little bit.
Totally. Like if you're living in a relationship that uses gaslighting and manipulation, it can be really confusing about what's true. And so asking objective people who are outside the relationship, but who are observing and who know you can be a really good reality check because they can say, no, you're confused. That's not how it happened. That's just what they're telling you because they're scrambling your brains with their manipulation.
Mm-hmm. What other advice do you have for anyone looking to move on from a relationship of any kind?
Well, I would say first, get the support on all of those levels we just talked about. Do your work so that you can bring your healthiest, most regulated self into whatever comes next for your next chapter. So, whether the work means listening to cool podcasts like this one, or reading books like mine, or going to therapy, I just think it's really important that you focus in on what's healthiest for you and how you can bring your healthiest form of yourself forward. And then really just sort of breaking it down to simple steps, just like one day at a time, one step at a time. Because when you're leaving really primary relationships, it can feel incredibly overwhelming. Like you don't have to have it all figured out right now. You don't have to know all the details about who you're going to be in 10 years. You just need to know what is the next right thing to do. And so breaking it up into small steps can help with the overwhelm and it can make you feel more in charge and in authority of your own life. And your nervous system will appreciate that.
I love that. Um, so what about people who have a hard time processing old trauma from childhood? I don't remember a lot from my childhood, but I feel like maybe some people need help like with reliving past trauma and thinking about old hurts. I know like my sister has a way better memory than me, and so she tends to think about her childhood still and almost get stuck thinking about it. How
Mhm.
can we break out of that cycle?
There's a lot of different forms of therapy that can help with all different things. I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the form of therapy called EMDR, which is really effective way of working with trauma that is very old and very kind of embedded. I am not an EMDR certified therapist myself, but I know a lot of my therapist friends are, and so that's a really good method. So I would say like you can explore different methods of psychotherapy that feel right. The one that I like a lot is internal family systems therapy. I use that with my clients. I use it in my personal work. Sometimes it's called parts work, but it's essentially working with the different parts of yourself and orienting around a true self that is the essence of who you are, but really honoring the aspects of your life where you've kind of fractaled off. There might be wounded child parts. There might be, you might have a teacher part. I have a therapist part. These parts of us that are not all of us, but they're aspects of who we are, and they can flood us with their energy. And so when you don't remember a lot about your childhood, that's something that usually makes a therapist kind of lean in and be like, that's interesting. We should slow down there, right? Because if you don't remember things, it's because your nervous system is protecting you from remembering them. And so oftentimes in therapy, when people do their healing work, they actually activate old memories that come to the surface. And so they'll have memories where you have to have the container of the therapeutic relationship to really hold. Otherwise, it can be re traumatizing and dysregulating. And so, really trusting your nervous system that it's showing you what you can tolerate and it's keeping from you what you can't. And so, that might just for you be the difference between you and your sister. You just might have different baselines in your nervous system. And there's a lot that we still don't know about memory in terms of like research that still needs to be done. But yeah, I would say find the right type of therapy for you. Like I'm an art therapist. Creative therapies can be amazing for people who don't really know how to put words to their experience and they're wanting to work more in sort of the intangible and the metaphorical. Play therapy is great for kids. There's music therapy, there's nature wilderness therapy, and then there's of course the more traditional kinds of therapy like cognitive behavioral, dialectical behavioral therapies. So I would definitely spend some time figuring out what form of support works best for you and then just explore it. Think of it like a little therapy buffet. Like you can try things. You don't have to stick with anything that doesn't work. And if you do find something that feels supportive, continue as long as it feels supportive. And if it shifts, therapists are great at offering referrals for whatever your next chapter could be. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I posted an episode about play therapy. I feel like it was this summer. And it doesn't have to be formal. Like if you're a parent, so here's an example. My daughter had to go to the ER with pneumonia years ago. She got home from the hospital and all she wanted to do was play doctor. She wanted to process her little visit in the ER because she had to spend the night and she got bacon in the morning. And I mean, she was having a good time, but she had to process the new experience, the trauma of being in the hospital, and she did it through play. And so, like you said, it doesn't have to involve talking. The play therapy is like setting up a sandbox for your kids to play in, a doll house, and then they act out whatever's on their mind. My daughter went to the dentist, and literally after the dentist visit, she got a Play-Doh head and he has a mouth and you like make the teeth out of Play-Doh and then you yank the Play-Doh teeth out. Like she really loves play therapy. She doesn't know it's called play therapy, but
Mhm.
Her mom's a
Yeah.
teacher.
Well, and kids are inherently creative, and honestly, we all are, but adults tend to sometimes squash that parts of themselves down, and then they have to sort of rediscover it. But kids, they're very open creatively. So play therapy is just another form of expression, and it's like something that you can experience externally with other objects. Like my daughter loves to play with horses, and I'll see her acting out like dynamics between the horse siblings that aren't getting along, like how the mother talks to the baby, right? And how they handle hard situations on the farm. And I'm like, "Oh wow, that seems a lot like our household."
Yeah, farm.
Right, the farm quote.
Yeah, I had a little student in third grade, and during lunch, he would want to watch My Little Pony on Netflix because he liked watching how the ponies solved problems and interacted in a healthy way. And he was like, I don't really want everyone to know I watch My Little Pony because he just, but he wanted to watch it because I think he was like learning a lot from the My Little Ponies.
Very cool.
So I am a trauma-informed coach, behavior interventionist, and teacher, and I've taught at-risk kids. And I know for some of us, when we grow up, we see what we don't want in a relationship. We see the romantic relationship between the parents and the fighting, or the addictions, or the depression. So for people who have only really known what they don't want, maybe this is people in their 20s, or what is a good way to start attracting a good relationship, mentally prepare for a healthy, normal, quote, romantic relationship if it hasn't been modeled for us?
Hmm. I think that's the reality for a lot of people, especially these days. It feels like there's so much conversation around healthy relationships and where we come from and all the intergenerational patterns. So, this is actually a really good time to be conscious about building healthy, nourishing relationships. And honestly, knowing what you don't want is great. It's fantastic because sometimes if you know what you don't want, then everything else is fair game to explore and experiment and discover. And so I would say if you do have a list of like, I can't be with people who use certain substances, or I can't be with people who don't have a therapist of their own, right? Like I can't date somebody who doesn't have awareness of their anger, or someone who doesn't apologize well. Things like that. That's okay. You can have deal breakers like that. And then I would say, as you're exploring people who meet whatever openness you have to new relationships, listening to your body and to the way your body is responding when you're with that person. So, like, if you're suddenly with somebody who's healthier than anyone you've ever seen, it might feel a little uncomfortable because it's so unfamiliar. But asking yourself, is this discomfort because this is new? Or is this discomfort because there's something wrong here? And your body doesn't know how to lie. Your mind is easy to influence, it's easy to manipulate, but your body isn't. It tells you signs and symptoms through the sensations that it gives you. So if every time you're with someone, you feel a knot in your stomach or a lump in your throat, or you notice that you're crossing your arms and leaning away, that's your body saying no. Even
Mhm.
if that person meets all the criteria on paper that you were looking for, your body is getting some intuitive sense that's like, oh, I don't like this. Whereas, otherwise you might be with somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, every time I'm with them, I can't wait to see them again. And I'm sad to say goodbye. Or I feel, butterflies of excitement in my chest, things, warmth in my body. I'm leaning in. Those are yes signals. So we don't have to know exactly who we're looking for and exactly what qualities they have. We just have to be open to listening to how our body feels when we're around them.
Trust your body more than you trust your online research. We could go
Or your
look at
mind.
his Instagram. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it
Yeah,
doesn't matter
absolutely.
what kind of car or house. Trust your body more than whatever you see out there online or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just know, like, if you're coming from a really traumatized past, just know that that is your work that you need to heal. And if you don't heal that, then you will continue to see every relationship through that filter.
And if you're listening and you've never really gone to a therapist, and Kate is like inspiring you to become a regular with some therapist, I just want to suggest like sometimes it is better to do therapy at the end of the day because say you do it during your lunch break and then you do open up some sort of childhood memory and then you cry. It's sometimes it's hard to like wrap it up in an hour and get back to business. I think that's why a lot of students like they don't want to go to the school counselor because they don't want to like go there in school and then after that's over they have to go to lunch, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you have really no other option and the only time to see your therapist is during the day, make sure you talk to your therapist about containment strategies. So that might mean making sure that you don't talk about your deepest, darkest wounds up until the last minute. Maybe, reserve some time at the end for a guided meditation or some breath work or some art making or some grounding, things like that. Those are containment strategies that can help you transfer from like that deep experience back into normal life. But yeah, I agree with you. And for some people, it's like, I want to start my day with therapy so that I can then think about it and process it all day. At the end of the day, they might be too tired. So I think it's different for everyone, but like listening to what feels right for you is probably the most important.
I love that. So, when it comes to mending a relationship, what are some takeaways from your book as far as mending?
The biggest thing for mending is what you said earlier, that if a relationship is going to be able to have any mending or repair, you have to have all parties involved willing to do the work together. So you can't solve this for them. You can't do all the work. They need to be here too. They need to be willing. And everyone needs to come to the table with openness to the other people's experiences. So that means trying to leave your defensiveness at the door, trying to leave your judgments and your blame at the door. Instead, showing up with curiosity. That's my favorite quality that you can bring into any relationship. Curiosity. Also, accountability of like, what's your stuff? What are you going to take ownership of? What are you going to apologize for? Accountability goes a really long way. And so, if you can show up that way and even with compassion for the other person, how brave it is for them to be meeting you and talking this through, how tough it might be with their upbringing for them to look at themselves and like what a big deal this is, that can sort of soften your heart in the moment and make it a little bit more productive. Um, Thinking of like curiosity based questions is a really good place to start. So if someone's sharing their experience with you, things like, tell me more about that, or help me understand. What do you mean when you say this? How do you mean that? Because I'm not sure. I'm not clear enough about that. Or what was that like for you? These are all curiosity-based statements that allow the other person to sort of keep talking and keep sharing, and then they allow you to gain more clarity. And then when it's your turn to talk, showing up with authenticity and honesty, like really making a commitment to yourself to be truthful about your experience and not to hide anything under the rug because that doesn't serve the healing. Like coming with partial truths and showing up in a filtered or sort of augmented way, that is not in the service of repair. So I would say that's important. And then also, it's important that everyone show up regulated because if you're a mess in your nervous system or if you're 1 minute away from having a total meltdown or getting enraged, that's not going to be productive either. So try to show up regulated and have a sensitivity. If the regulation feels like it's sort of tipping, take a break, everybody go cool off, and then come back when you're regulated again. So those
Mhm.
are a few of the tips.
Do you think it's true that like boundaries and standards, they're not meant to keep people out of our lives? We set them to keep people in our lives. We're like, this is how my life goes. If you want to be in my life, I have some boundaries. You can't just pop by, or our mother-in-law can't just pop by. That's how I've always looked at boundaries and standards. It's like we think of them as aggressive, but they're actually like inviting somebody like to be a part of our life, but kind of like on our terms.
Totally. I think it's a misunderstanding that only bad relationships need to have boundaries. I think it's actually the opposite. The best relationships are the ones with the clearest boundaries. And I love boundaries because if I know where someone's edges are, then I know how to respect them. and I know how to show up in a way that works for them. If I don't know where their edges are, I might be more likely to push past them accidentally and to cause harm unintentionally because I don't know what their limits are. And so I also think it's important to create a distinction between boundaries and requests because sometimes they get sort of commingled. So the requests are the things we ask of other people. It requires something of them. Like if your mother-in-law is popping by, the request would be like, please call before you come. It requires that she do something. Whereas the boundary requires nothing from the other person. It just lets them know what you will do when your edges are pressed. So you might say to your mother-in-law, if you show up unannounced, I won't answer the door. So that's the difference between the boundaries and the requests. And yeah, I think the healthiest relationships have boundaries. And I also talk in my book about when a relationship is really unhealthy and you need more than boundaries. I talk about walls. Walls are really only present in unhealthy relationships. They are basically like the super strengthened, fortified boundaries that keep people out so that you can keep yourself protected. So walls are different than boundaries in that sense. And I would say, as you're like listening along, if you're assessing your relationship and how healthy it is, if you notice that you have really big walls built to protect you in certain relationships, that's your first indication that that relationship is probably not healthy.
Many of us stay in bad relationships way past the expiration date, long after the first red flag. I have a lot of clients, like as a life coach, who stay attached to like the toxic relationships or people making, false promises, faking the future, future faking, over promising, under delivering. Do you ever just have to tell clients like, hey, move on already? Or, like this might be emotionally abusive. This might be emotional abuse or financial abuse. Do you ever have
Mhm.
to tell them?
Yeah, I think it's my responsibility, honestly, as the person they're coming to let them know that, yes, this is emotionally abusive, or you're just looping with this person, right? Like, do you feel this loop that keeps happening? It's not my place to tell them mend or move on, but it is my responsibility to tell them the truth about what I see from an objective place and to sort of reflect what they have said to me. And then ultimately, it's my job to be with them, regardless of what they choose, and to support them on either path, even if I don't necessarily agree. That's one of the challenges of being a therapist sometimes is letting people make their own decisions, even if I think it might be a mistake, and supporting them. Because ultimately, I don't know. I don't know what's best for them. And I don't really know what they're here to learn. I just know that they came to me for support. So I try to show up that way as much as I can. But if they ask me straight up, what should I do? I have, therapist type responses to that where, I might say, it's really interesting that you're asking an outside person what you should do, and I think you already know internally what the answer is, right? Things like that, like really redirecting them back towards their inner knowing and their wisdom. But yeah, it can be tough when people kind of loop and circle and circle and circle, and sometimes I'll see people for years in those loops.
My marriage therapist, Mary Jane Hooper, I think she's probably in her 80s now. Um, and anyways, she separated us. She would have sessions with my ex-husband. She would have sessions with me when we were still married. And then she would tell me like, hey, why don't you, the next time, you feel like your ex-husband is being bossy or whatever, or, making threats, like you have to do this or that. She was like, why don't you say, I don't feel safe in this relationship right now. And I don't think she meant to tell me like, to keep telling my ex-husband like I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I don't think she wanted me to be a broken record and say that. I think she wanted it to sink in that it wasn't safe behavior to
Mhm.
rattle somebody all the time.
Yeah, totally. And it might have been a difficult lesson for you to pick up because you might have really not wanted to face that reality. Because if you're honest with yourself about how emotionally unsafe your relationship is, then you got to do something about it, right? And sometimes we're not ready to do something about it yet, so we avoid it until we are.
Do you ever have clients who are very, very fiercely independent? Maybe it doesn't seem like they get lonely. Maybe they're just going to enjoy their time with their dog. Or, we have connection through prayer and meditation, our pets. Like there's so many ways that we get connection. Is this a problem for people who are very independent and are not seeking a partner or a lot of relationships? What do you think? Is there a downside to being fiercely independent?
I would say it's only a problem if it's a problem for you. Like if it's working for you, it's not a problem at all. If you've created the life of your design, which is socially minimal, connected at sort of a distance, maybe you have a deep connection with yourself, with your animals, with your higher power, with one or two people. As long as that works for you, who am I to tell you that that's not good? The only time when I would say that's probably not a good idea is when somebody comes to me and they say, I am so fiercely independent and I'm lonely and I want connection, but I don't let myself have connection. That would be the place that would have some really fertile ground for some work around why do you push people away? Why do you keep yourself isolated? That's a totally different conversation than someone who's like, I love my life, I'm independent, I have freedom, I feel really at peace in my life, I feel really fulfilled.
Because we all have different ways to fill our cup. Like I have like this amazing team at work, like we're all besties. And then like when the week is over, like I'm good. And then some of my besties are like, let's get wine. And I'm always like, I'm good. We've hung out all week.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're kind of speaking to the introvert extrovert spectrum a little bit right now. And I think that's really important to acknowledge too, like where you live on that spectrum. I talked about that a little more in my Radiant Life book, really trying to take ownership, like of are you an introvert and can you accept that? Because so often, if you have a lot of extroverted friends, there will be a sense of shame around like, no, I just want to go put on my fuzzy slippers and cuddle up with my book on a Friday night. And there's no shame in that if that's what feels nourishing and supportive for you. But an extrovert might not understand that because that's not their model of reality. So letting yourself be different from other people and again, listening into your inner compass about what feels right for you, that's the ticket to happiness.
Is it a typical relationship where one person calls the shots more than the other and one person is the alpha? Or do just some of us believe that because that's what we've experienced so far? Or is that typical to some degree?
Every relationship looks so different, but I think a lot of relationships do have a dynamic like that. It might not be, alpha in all areas, but there might be like different handoffs in different aspects. So maybe somebody is sort of the more dominant decision maker when it comes to finances. Somebody is more dominant decision maker when it comes to planning family vacations, and the other one takes the back seat. Maybe someone is more dominant with taking care of the kids. The important piece here is not that there's not an alpha or beta dynamic, it's that decisions are not made in a vacuum. So if someone is more dominant with managing the finances, they still need to ask the other person for their consent if they're going to spend in a big way or if they're going to make a big decision. Like, we're not just going to say, hey, we're moving to a new house, whether you like it or not, and it's twice the amount of our current house. That wouldn't be healthy. So what would be healthier would be, having a conversation like, how do you feel about moving? Would you be open to that? This is what it's going to cost. This is what it's going to mean for our family. And having that dialogue. But ultimately, it's okay if one person takes the reins. And honestly, I think in some relationships that takes a lot of the bickering and the fighting off the table because it's just like, well, you're the one who manages this for our family, and that's great. I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to work on these other things that I manage for our family, and that's balance. So every dynamic can find its own balance depending on what feels right for the participants.
Yeah, I love that. Even at work, that's a good team atmosphere. Like when everyone has their strengths and you know that so and so takes care of that because that's their strength and they're good with that. And then I do this and it's a
Hmm.
good teamwork vibe.
Yeah, totally. Because it's too much if you have to do everything all yourself, right? Like, that's why we have partnerships so we can lean on each other and have a give and take.
You mentioned the boomerang relationship, on again, off again, mending, moving on. I'm done. Oh, wait, no, I'm not. If someone's dealing with that relationship dynamic, do you have any specific advice for them?
I have a lot of compassion for someone who's in that perspective. It's like a liminal space, really, of like push and pull. And there's a lot of suffering entailed with that because you kind of go through feeling really empowered and really strong and really clear, and then suddenly feeling really weak and really confused and really collapsed. And that could be part of the dynamic. So if you're in a relationship with a really toxic person, they might want you to feel small and powerless and not fight back. And they might like it when you're in a state of confusion because it gives them control. So if there's a dynamic like that that's based on power and control, that's something that's really important that you notice. And that would be a really great time for you to start working with a therapist so that you can have a professional help you see those patterns and help to teach you skills to protect you from engaging in those patterns. If your relationship isn't toxic, if it's just like misaligned, maybe you have just expired your season, you're not a match anymore, you could still fall back in and collapse into the dynamic because it's familiar, it's comfortable, might have been something you've been doing for a really long time. And so then you would need to work on things like your own personal discipline, really like holding yourself accountable for the change that you say you want, standing up for yourself, movement towards the life that you want. So, having a therapist or a coach to help you work with the skill set around that could be really important too. But I would say, like, the shorter amount of time you can spend in that limbo, the better for everyone. Because even if your relationship's not toxic, if it's just not a good match, you're taking up space in each other's lives that maybe someone else could do better for you. So, like, if you free yourself, you're also freeing the other person to go find a better match and use the life that you were given for healthy relationships instead of staying kind of cobbled up in this misery that's kind of that push pull dynamic.
Hmm. And it's a big world out there, like don't go on the same vacation that you guys used to go on together and have memories of them. Like try something new. Maybe you need to move towns, move to a new town or something. If you
Hmm.
really just like can't have the willpower to pull yourself out, but you know you need to.
Well, and here, we talked about boundaries with other people, but this is also a place to talk about having boundaries with yourself,
Hmm.
where, you have to stop calling them when you've had 3 glasses of wine. Don't circle back if you know you're vulnerable. Maybe this is where you take them out of your phone or you lock your phone away in a box for a while so that when you're vulnerable, you can't do things that you're going to later regret. Having boundaries with yourself around like not boomeranging in the ways that are predictable for you. Like maybe every time you're in this certain group of friends, you notice that you collapse your boundaries and then you give more than you want to give, or you go home with them even though you don't want to, things like that. So, this is an important practice of fostering self trust by setting boundaries with yourself and maintaining them.
Hmm. Yeah. And we're about to wrap up, but is there anything else we need to cover when it comes to mending and reconciling or moving on and maybe even going no contact?
Something I just want to say is nobody, no matter how close they are in your life, it's never okay for them to hurt you. And there's been a lot of conversation around, tolerating dysfunction and abuse from spouses or from family members in the name of family. Like they're family, you're stuck, you just got to deal with it. It's not okay even if they're your family, even if they're your spouse. No one deserves to be hurt. No one deserves to be treated with harm or with cruelty or with manipulation. So I say that for the person who's sort of like in the background, feeling like "Ugh, I'm hurt in this relationship, but I feel like it's just the built-in dynamic here. There's nothing I can do about it. I just want you to know there's always something you can do about it. And you do deserve to be treated in ways that support you, love you, show up for you, not always tearing you down and hurting you.
Mhm. Yeah. We start rationalizing it, like, oh, I can't leave my job because I'm 64, I'm too old, but I'm in this toxic job. Whatever it is, like you can leave. If something is affecting your health and causing you stress,
Mhm.
always the change that you can make.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why the book is called Mend or Move On, because there's always choices. You're never stuck. The choices might be difficult. You might not want to have to make the choice, but that doesn't mean there is no choice.
Now, you mentioned power and control and manipulation, but have you heard of the power and control wheel?
No, what's that?
Okay, it's like an image. I think it's called the Duluth model. It's out of a university in Duluth, Minnesota.
Hmm.
But for everybody listening, you can Google power and control wheel, and then it will show you ways that people try to control you with finances, using the children, emotionally. Like if you are like, no, is this person trying to manipulate me? Go and look at the power and control wheel online, and
Hmm.
you'll see the way that people coerce and manipulate other people. And you might be in a coercive or manipulative relationship and you might not even know it.
Yeah, that's a great way to just gain information so that you can have clarity. Information gathering is so empowering because the more you know, the more you can do to protect yourself and to align yourself. But don't hide from the truth. Really just face it, acquire a little more information, and then make your decisions with that informed perspective.
And go to Amazon, get Kate King's new book, Mend or Move On. And it's been a pleasure having you here today. Let everyone know where they can find you online and on social media.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Basically, my hub is the radiantlifeproject.com. That's my website. And I'm on social media. My handle is the Radiant Life Project, pretty much everywhere you look online. So DM me and email me. Hopefully, my book supports you and helps you. And if you have questions, feel free to be in touch. I love to work with community and I'm very responsive. So I look forward to getting to know you more, all you audience members listening. And thank you so much for listening to our conversation.
Thank you for being here. Well, that completes our episode for today. Thank you all for being here at Dissolving Fear. You can scroll through 90 episodes on this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now on YouTube. So follow for more and keep exploring your favorite ways to dissolve fear and live your most ideal life and most radiant life every single day. Thank you for being here, and check out missalissa.com for the free monthly newsletter.